So after having just left the theater, having gone to see The Long Walk, I thought this film was much more impactful than I ever thought it would be. The film followed a linear and rather cyclical structure, ultimately falling rather liberally into three acts. I expected the film to, in a way, lull me to sleep due to the fact that I knew the film was going to be all about 50 kids walking from one point in the country to another. And with that being the case, I knew that, especially as it pertained to the building of the characters, the writers were going to be forced to tell us a lot in lieu of showing us. That said, I think the writers did an amazing job of making us care about the characters as a whole, and especially the characters that were the focus of the story. And speaking of those characters in particular, it became fairly easy to tell who would be the last few characters standing, and even who in this anxiety-inducing race would ultimately come down to being the winners. And despite the absolutely fantastic job the writers did with the dialogue in this movie, I do have a few narrative beefs with the film. I think this was a film that could have maybe used a bit more flashbacks to break up some of the monotony of the walk itself, as well as giving us a chance to see some of the important characters living the life they left behind. I thought the violence shown on screen was a bit on the gory side, but I think it was used as a means to, again, keep the audience engaged. So in this particular case, I won't eat all the director's lunch. But there was one pretty big narrative oversight at the beginning of the film and what I think was a powerful but mismanaged ending. Now, overall, I'd give this film a 75%, or a 7.5 out of 10 if you're thinking IMDb score. And instead of a C+, I'm going to go with a B- here for a leather grade for good measure. Look, despite the score, this movie is a pretty good one. I think it was pretty well written for the most part, and it reminds me a lot of The Hunger Games, but it shouldn't be viewed as a copy, as Stephen King's novel was published long before the Suzanne Collins franchise hit the shelves. That said, if I had to compare this movie to the Hunger Games film, the first one that is, I would take that one over this one, mostly due to the much more meticulous world building, something I didn't think this film had nearly enough of. But if you're in the mood for a character-driven story about friendship and sacrifice set against the backdrop of a dystopian American society set in the very near future, this film can deliver that in spades.